In this video, we're going to look at the counterpart of domain, which is the range. So before you start this lesson, just know there's two review videos. You should already be comfortable with what is a function and domain. All right, so domain, we are focused on the things we're putting into a function, but there's two sides to a function, so we also want to focus on the things we're getting out. And that's the range. All right, so the range is all the outputs that you're getting, and generally outputs are y values. So range is outputs, domain is inputs. All right, that's just like a definition that you have to memorize, just like you know what the definition of onomatopoeia is in English. In math class, you have to know domain is inputs, range is outputs. Right, similar to domain, all right, there's kind of different things you have to master. I should be able to do it if I give you a graph. You should be able to do it with a square root function, a quadratic function, and a scenario or real world application. So pretty much the same things for domain, but just doing it in the range realm. So identify the range of f of x equals x squared plus 2. For me, just finding out the range by looking at the expression is pretty hard. I can do it for domain because I asked myself that question, kind of what could go wrong. For range, I always kind of want to look at a graph when I'm giving an expression. So I was going to graph this. All right, x squared plus 2. X squared is a parabola. It's going to get moved up by 2. So that's why we reviewed graphing before range. All right, so it's going to look like this. And then what's the range of this function? What y values do I hit? Well, the lowest y value hit is right there at 2. And I hit everything above that. So my y values are all bigger than or equal to 2. All right, so that's my range. So range really, if you just think about, if you can do it with a graph, you can do it with anything. All right, but if you can graph these functions like you did in the last review video, then you can find the range. All right, here we're actually just given a function. All right, the most common mistake students make with range is just using the first point and the last point. But the range can be affected by things in the middle. So again, you're thinking about the lowest y value hit. So if I think about the bottom, the lowest y value hit is right there at -9. And the highest y value I hit, if I'm coming down from the top, is right there at -2. All right, so my y values are on the left is the lowest value is -2. The highest value, or sorry, -9. The highest value is -2. And now I had to ask myself, do I put the equal sign or not? You put the equal sign if you hit that y value exactly. We had this open circle here, which I kind of hid, that open circle there. So you might think you don't hit -9, but actually right here, you actually do hit -9. So I do hit -9. And right up here, I also hit -2. So both of these have an equal sign because I hit the highest and lowest value. I just noticed real quick with range, I didn't actually use this point at all because it's kind of in the middle of the graph in terms of height. All right, so you don't actually use the endpoints necessarily. You're just going to use the highest point and the lowest point of your graph. And always writing, again, smallest value to biggest value. All right, here's one of our scenario problems. All right, you put in a TV show and you got the number of hours of content produced for that show. All right, what's an appropriate range? Again, we saw this with domain. When you're doing a domain or range, you don't care about the other side. So actually, I don't care about at all what I'm putting in. Well, I guess I kind of do because it makes sense for the number of hours of content produced. All right, so the thing I get out is the number of hours. So how many hours does it make sense for a TV show to have? All right, so my y values, what's the lowest amount of hours a TV show might have produced? Maybe if they only had one season, they might only have like 8 hours worth. They had 8 episodes. All right, so I think the lowest that a TV show might have is 8. You could even go down as far as like 1. Some shows make a pilot episode and then that's it. They make 1 episode and they're done, so maybe 1. But for a TV show, you might put in maybe 8's the lowest. And what's the highest number for the number of hours of content produced for a show? I know like Law and Order has been going on for like 30 years. The Simpsons, I think, is on like season 35 or something. So I don't know, maybe like, how many episodes? I don't know, 500 hours? Maybe it's 1,000? I don't know. But you can kind of see the reasoning I'm kind of go with. What is the biggest number of hours that I could possibly get out for the number of hours of a TV show? Of course, I don't know the exact number, but 500 seems reasonable. It's a big number for these shows that have been going on for a really long time. All right, but generally for these ones, if you're kind of reasoning through, thinking about the lowest that you could get out, the highest you can get out, that's going to be your range. All right, identify the range of this function. Right away, I see it as an expression, so I'm automatically going to think of a graph. All right, it's a square root function, which which normally looks like that, but it's going to go right 4, down 5. And then because of this negative, it's going to be going down instead of up. All right, so this is just reviewing our transformations, but now I can see what y values do I hit. Well, the biggest y value I have is right there at -5, and I hit everything below it. So I hit every y value that's less than -5. So everything below -5 I hit, because this just keeps going down slowly forever, but eventually I hit all those values down there. All right, but you can see for these expressions, if you can graph them quickly, then it's just the same as the ones where you're given a graph. You just have to do a bit more work on the front end. All right, and here's our last example. It's another scenario. Again, we're looking at a range, so we're really just focusing on what we get out. All right, we put in the name of class and we get out a letter grade for that class. Well, my range, this is one of those situations where it's not going to be numbers because I'm getting out a letter. All right, so what letters are possible to get out for a grade? I can get an A, a B, a C, a D, and an F. All right, those are the only letter grades you can get, so that's the only thing that makes sense for the range of this function. Hopefully for you specifically, you're only getting out A's and B's if you put in the name of a class. All right, but again, all of these 5 are actually possible. So if you just put A, B, then it's good. It means you're only getting A's and B's. All right, but generally for this function, it makes sense to get out A through F. All right, so go ahead and practice your range. Again, make sure you're looking at all those practice problems and really make sure you're comfortable with all the different types. You don't have to do an individual skill check, but just make sure you understand what's going on. And then once you get through all these, you're almost done all the review, then you can move on to the challenge problems.